Let me tell you about Jennifer. She's in her mid-50s. She doesn't talk much about her feelings. She's not dramatic. She doesn't post long messages about her life. She just keeps going. She handles things. She figures things out. And if you grew up in the 1970s, there's a strong chance you already feel connected to her. People who grew up in the 1970s didn't grow up feeling fully protected. Even if their parents loved them, something always felt uncertain. Parents were worried, money was tight, life felt unstable. Adults worked hard, followed the rules, and still didn't always get what they were promised. Kids could feel that tension in the house, even when no one talked about it. As a child, you start noticing things. You notice when your parents are stressed. You notice when they're disappointed. You notice when they say things like, "We can't afford that," or "maybe next time." And slowly, without anyone saying it directly, a message sinks in. Life is not as safe as it's supposed to be. That message stays with you. Many people who grew up in the 1970s made a quiet decision early in life. They didn't sit down and think about it. It just happened. They decided, "I will not end up like this. I will not struggle like they did. I will not miss my chances." That decision becomes a silent driver behind everything they do. That's why they push themselves so hard. Not because they love working, not because they're chasing success for attention, but because being busy feels safer than being unsure. Doing something feels better than waiting. Work becomes a way to calm anxiety. Rest doesn't feel natural to them. Sitting still makes them uncomfortable. Even on days off, their mind is busy. They feel like they should be doing something, and when they finally stop, guilt shows up. They don't always know why. It's just there. They learned early that nobody is really coming to save you. Their parents were trying, but they were also stuck. So kids learned not to ask for too much, not to be a problem, not to add stress. Over time, this turns into, "I'll handle it myself." Even now, asking for help feels strange, almost wrong. Growing up, talking about feelings didn't fix anything. Crying didn't change the bills. Complaining didn't make life easier. Doing something did. Staying calm did. So feelings were pushed aside, not because they didn't matter, but because they didn't seem useful. That's why people from this generation often go quiet when they're stressed. They don't explode, they don't vent, they shut down a little. They think, they deal with it inside. When they love someone, they don't always say it. They show it by being reliable, by fixing things, by staying. They don't trust easily. They've seen things fall apart, promises break, plans fail. So they wait and watch. Words don't impress them, actions do. Now, this shows up very clearly in relationships and dating. People who grew up in the 1970s often struggle in relationships even if they don't talk about it. They want closeness, but closeness feels risky. They want connection, but depending on someone feels uncomfortable. They often choose partners they can be strong for. They feel safer being the stable one, the provider, the fixer. Being needed feels familiar. Being emotionally exposed does not. In relationships, they may seem distant or guarded, but inside, they're always watching, always checking. Is this safe? Will this last? Will I be disappointed again? They don't fall in love fast, they fall in love carefully, and when they do, they attach deeply. That's why breakups hit them harder than they show. They don't cry loudly, they carry it quietly. Many of them stay in unhappy relationships longer than they should. Not because they don't see the problem, but because leaving feels like failure. They watched their parents' lives fall apart, and they promised themselves they wouldn't repeat that, so they tolerate more than they should. Others avoid relationships altogether for long periods. They tell themselves they're fine alone, and part of that is true, but part of it is fear. Fear of relying on someone, fear of being disappointed, fear of starting over. Later in life, some people from this generation date younger, Not because they're chasing youth, but because parts of their emotional life were delayed. Fun was postponed, feelings were postponed, romance was postponed. When life finally slows down, those parts come back asking for attention. Younger partners feel lighter, more open, more expressive. That attention feels good, it feels alive. And sometimes they mistake attention for connection because they were never taught how to ask for emotional needs directly. They are loyal partners, but they don't always know how to communicate what they need. They expect others to notice, to understand without being told, because that's how they learned to survive. They are also very sensitive to disrespect in relationships. Small things hurt deeply. Broken promises feel bigger than they should, because trust to them feels tied to safety. They don't like drama in relationships. Loud emotions make them uncomfortable. They prefer calm, routine, and stability. But sometimes this creates distance because their partner feels unseen or unheard. They often love through actions instead of words. They'll show up, they'll help, they'll be consistent, but they may struggle to say, "I need you," or "I'm scared," or "I feel lonely." They are good at carrying the relationship, but not always good at sharing the emotional weight. Outside of relationships, many of them still trust things that look official and safe. Brands, experts, authority. Because growing up, those things meant stability. That's why sometimes they get caught in consumer traps and later think, "How did I not see that coming?" They are not stupid. They are using old rules in a new world. They are very good at handling pressure. Stress feels normal. Long days feel normal. But burnout sneaks up on them because they don't stop until their body forces them to. They don't like wasting time. Time feels serious. Drama feels exhausting. Clear plans feel calming. They don't show off. They don't need attention. They build quietly. They let results speak. They grew up between two worlds, before everything was digital, before everything was loud. They adapted, but they still crave simplicity. They hope things work out, but they don't rely on hope. They plan, they prepare, they expect problems. That way, disappointment hurts less. Deep down, many of them carry a quiet anger, not loud, just a feeling that life didn't protect them the way it should have, that their parents tried, but couldn't give them security or opportunity. And they decided, "I will not repeat that." So if you grew up in the 1970s and this feels painfully familiar, you're not imagining it. You didn't become this way by accident. You adapted, and if you're listening, thinking, "How did they know this about me?" It's because you've been carrying it for decades. If this felt like your story, write it in the comments. Most people from your generation have felt this their whole life. They just never heard it said out loud.